Okay, actually, if you go to YouTube, good friend for YouTube video. Do you want to come to the microphone?
Hello, hello. All right, everybody, take a seat if you haven't taken one yet. We're just about to start. We try to be as much on time as possible because you have some online visitors as well. Oh, that's the camera. Okay. Yeah. Hello to everybody looking from the internet. Hello to everybody here. It's really crazy to have you all here. It's been way too long, I think, since we had a product crunch here in the Goodpatch office. Yeah, I'm just really happy that we can make this happen again, that we can have all the discussions afterwards and really get to engage. Because it's such a beautiful community. Product crunch has been going for quite some years now, so I'm more than excited that, yeah, it's almost reborn again. Today we have a really interesting topic. I would say we're going to talk about the circular economy. At Goodpatch, we also started getting more and more involved with this topic because we started out, we just built apps and software, and we realized quite quickly, oh, these apps, they don't come alone. They are really connected, embedded in things. So back in the days, we mostly just then used our design methodologies, but in the past years as well, we realized, okay, there's so much more even connected to this. Is this flickering a bit? Should be. Yeah, so there's so much more connected to how we build products. It's not just products, it's the services, it's the systems, it's the ecosystems. And with that, we are pretty quickly at the circular economy. Now, when I told you what I would almost say used to do, that really was about digital transformation. And that's pretty much what I think, yeah, defined a lot of our lives in let's say 2000s, 2010s, something like that. But what we believe is really happening now is this sustainability transformation. So it's not just becoming or turning things sustainable, but really using the tools we have, the great minds we have, the networks and relations we have to really rethink how we do things. So it's not just turning, let's say, a shirt into just secondary materials, for example, recycled materials, but really rethinking how can we do this from the ground up? How can we leverage these options we have? And that is quite tricky. It's quite difficult to do. So that's why I'm very happy that we have 3 speakers today who will tell us a bit about how it can be done. So we're going to start off with Tobias, who, before when we talked, he told me you're going to tell us everything about the circular economy in 15 minutes. And the second thing you said was like, yeah, I'm in so many jobs and roles because it's such a complex topic. So I'm very, very much excited to hear from you how we can really make the circular economy work. And before you start with that, also to hear about your 4 roles that you're taking to solve that problem. So give it up for Tobias.
Hey, my name is Tobias, nice to be here. So I'm in charge of giving a very brief introduction to the circular economy. I try my very best to make it as short as possible. No. So is it working?
It's working, you can just continue.
So who am I and what am I doing? So this is not, these are some of my roles. I'm working as a strategic designer and consultant, but I'm working as a research associate at university too, so at the University of Applied Sciences Potsdam, and I'm working on a research project focusing very much on working within planetary boundaries, which is at some point very frustrating, and it's hard to understand, but it makes total sense. Oh, thank you. So here we go. At Circular Berlin, I'm circular design expert and part of the education team. We are an NGO based here in Berlin. So my second job working as a freelancer, like I just said, a strategic designer consultant, and I'm a research associate. So what does it mean? So during the week, I have lots of different roles that I'm taking. And for my background, I'm product and industrial designer. So today's presentation is a little bit two-sided because I will tell you something about my product and industrial design perspective, which is more technical than some of Product Crunch people's are might used to because it's more digital. And the second thing is about being part of Circular Berlin and an ecosystem that is pushing circular economy here in Berlin. So when I graduated from university a few years ago, we never talked about sustainability during my studies. So, which is a bad thing because we as product designers, of course, we create great impact or have a great impact on the environment, especially when in terms of materials and technologies that we're using. So I asked myself where I'm contributing to. So I started working as a freelancer. I worked for a shoe label here in Berlin, where I was in charge of the sole development. I worked for different agencies in the context of the design research, but I asked myself the questions, do I really create any impact with the stuff I'm designing? And then I started to thinking about the bigger picture. This was a pretty long process. So to get to understand that the most holistic picture or the most holistic perspective that I can take is like climate change, that is kind of the global challenge. Of course, we do have like the European Green Deal, which is the political strategy. So it is the EU's agenda for sustainable growth, getting hopefully climate neutral in 2050. And of course, we do have the Circular Economy Action Plan, which is one of the main building blocks of the European Green Deal. So it is more or less the economic realization, how to implement it in Europe. So we do, of course, have great achievements like Deutsche Kreislaufwirtschaft. But it's very misunderstood in Germany because it is always about talking about recycling. And the circular economy has a more holistic perspective on the whole value creation process. But for me, as a product designer focusing on physical goods. So it is, of course, important to understand there is a product architecture. So it's not just about the product, but it is about the component level, the material and substances level as well. But to rethink where can I contribute? So I need to understand that the products I'm supposed to design are just there to, or supposed to fulfill a need. And of course, I need to understand the different business models and ecosystems my products are working in. So to give a very brief introduction, this is very briefly from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, one of the leading NGOs in the context of the circular economy. So it is mainly based, or the concept of the circular economy is mainly based on three different principles. So it is design on waste and pollution, and keep products and materials in use. These two are very important to technical product development processes, because we determine around about or up to 80% of the ecological impact is created at the design stage. And of course, we generate natural systems, which is important to understand as well, because if you're seeing, for example, CO2 as a kind of raw material or currency that is which is limited, so we come up with other product solutions. So this is the butterfly diagram by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. It shows this in a very abstract way, but it makes it easy to understand. So we have two different cycles. Like the left-hand cycle, the green one is the biosphere or the biological cycle. The right one is the technosphere or the technological cycle. And the idea behind is that we understand that products can be nutrients for the products, so that there is no value lost and that we need to think in different circles and cycles. So the circular economy is very much about cycles and values. So another part is, this is, for example, what is circular economy approaches look like more from a research perspective. So it's getting more and more complex as close or as deeper you're going into the system. So this is like the value chain from mining or the extraction from raw materials through the manufacturing process, retailing, till reaching the consumer where the product is supposed to fulfill a need, up to landfilling. The R's it is the 10R strategy that is used very often. And there we're talking, you may have heard about them, from refuse, reduce, and so on. And there we're talking about short loops, medium long loops, and long loops, which is important to understand because it takes time to make circular systems work, and it takes lots of effort. From a product design perspective, it is important to understand that there are, of course, approaches and strategies that ensure, for example, the smarter product use and manufacturing, or the extended lifespan of products and goods, and the useful application of materials. So this is what the linear economy is looking like. The model is called the value hill, and it's very interesting to see how values are created within a linear economy. So some of you might have heard of the take, make, use, dispose. This is more or less the same, but it's presented in a different way. Because we extract raw materials from nature, manufacture them to a material, manufacture them to a product, or to different components, assemble different components to a product, and through a retail, reaching the user or the customer. So the linear economy is very much looking at the point of sale. So we're putting much of resources into the system, not just raw materials, but energy, working effort as well. And after more or less the point of sale, like when you use it, your product loses value. And at some point, if you don't use it anymore, or you don't want to use it anymore, all the value is lost if you throw it away. This is what the circular economy is looking at, and the destroyed value is what we so-called the value cliff. So instead of designing products that lose their value after use, the circular economy keeps the value as high as possible for as long as possible. So if you take a look, like all the raw materials that are added to, or the value that is added to the system, at some point, the circular economy, it is all about the retaining of value. So you want the materials or the products to be used very to be very intensive, and there you have the possibility to understand that there are different kinds of product levels. So this is from the very bottom, it is very material and substances level, and through component level, we're reaching a product level. And what the circular economy is meaning by keeping product at its highest value is meaning by destroying the product or break it down to components that we can reuse and refurbish. It's brilliant, but of course the product loses its value. So the last thing that we're doing is, or what we can do, is the recycling. Yeah, so to connect like the aspect of circularity to sustainability approaches, so the design for circular economy narrows, slows, regenerates, and closes material and energy flows. So these are some different strategies, or the first three are the most common one that I use in terms of sustainable product development. Like efficiency, every one of you have heard of it. It is taking less, for example, less material into a system by for product that fulfills the same need, for example. Or talking about sufficiency, it is about slowing flows so that you ensure longer or more intensive use, for example, through shale models. If you keep in mind, for example, that on average, the normal car is standing on the street for 23 hours a day and is just used for 1 hour, this is not what we call not an intensive use. The third thing, consistency, is about then focusing, of course, on the circular economy, which is very complex to make the systems work more circular. And of course, with livability, so the regenerate flows to make them cleaner. But it's important to understand that for me, as a product designer, for example, sometimes different aspects mean something different. So when I'm talking about efficiency, for example, it is about use less material for example, for a production process. But of course, it can mean to a customer the opportunity to avoid waste by, for example, avoid the use of plastic bags, for example. These are all different strategies, but they are all connected to each other. What is important to understand is that efficiency always works. It's about optimization. But of course, we can optimize the system without taking or without question, is really good what we're doing? So this is why sufficiency and of course consistency are much more powerful. So to give you a technical view on product development processes, so what does that mean to product architecture, for example? So we can see here like the product level to component level. For example, design for product attachment trust. If we don't want to use or don't like to use a product, it can create no impact at all. Product durability, which is very important, especially when it comes to advanced producer responsibility, which is a great thing within the circular economy. So producing companies, they stay in ownership of their product. I will show you some examples later on. Another one is standardization compatibility. I don't know if someone of you has ever bought a soda streamer. So there are lots of different types of soda streamer, Duo, Crystal, and so on and so on. They all have different bottles and that don't work in any other ecosystem. So it's totally ridiculous. This is what standardization should not be about. Ease of maintenance and repair is one of the most common, most powerful aspects of circularity strategy, because it ensures, for example, refurbishment and remanufacturing. And of course, upgrading and adaptability and dis and reassemble are on a technical level needed to ensure any kind of repairment, for example. If you can't disassemble a product, it is very hard to repair it. So, what is most important, and I will not talk so much about circular business models, which are very essential as well, but there is no impact without a suitable business model. So we can create the most sustainable and most circular product. If the business model is not fitting, we can create no impact. So what I'm doing in my job and what I'm doing, or we are doing at Circular Berlin as well, is we want to raise more circular awareness. So this is some of my work. So everyday circularity for more circular awareness, because I totally believe, and from my experience, it's not just always about innovation. It is about learning from other products that surround us every day, because there are circular or sustainable aspects behind these everyday products, which are very interesting to understand. And if we understand how they're working, we can apply these aspects to our problems and find solutions. So this is more or less a very, or you might think a very simple product. It's a waste bin. So it is from the ESA company. It's a company based in Neuruppin in Brandenburg, and they are producer or they're producer of waste bins, small ones to very big containers. And what is so special about that company or their approach is they developed a zero waste strategy. Means how do they make this? Instead of just buying them or selling the product, the waste bins to communities or cities all over Europe, they started developing a business model based on leasing and sharing. So on renting to be honest. So meaning they're giving or they're renting them to cities all over Europe, and they exactly know when the contract is ending and when they're getting back their waste bins. So because of this, they decouple their economic activity from the need for virgin materials, which is very special. And because they know their products very well, they especially know how durable they are supposed to be for the period of time that the products are used, and they can be repaired very easily. So if you as a manufacturing company start to understand that you're responsible for your product for the whole life cycle, you start thinking about other approaches to apply to your product, because you want it to be as durable as possible. So, and what they have achieved is like 65% less environmental impact through the use of recycled plastics, and what is even greater, 88% less energy needed compared to virgin plastics. Recycling, of course, is a very big topic. We don't. I will not talk about so much in this presentation, because recycling is not equal recycling. Of course, there are different types of plastics. There are different colors. Purity is a great thing, but of course there are lots of substances with additives inside the plastic, which perfectly fit to the product requirements. So, and because they know which kind of plastic they're using in a very special way, and they know when they're coming it back, they can create lots of value. So they are not just a producing company or a product manufacturing company, but they are recycler of their own goods. This is what is so special about it, and this is what is, the new business model aspect behind this. So there's three aspects to keep in mind when thinking about designing products that I would like all of you to keep in mind. So it is first about awareness. So we need to raise awareness for sustainable approaches, and of course for circular economy, because there are lots of products that work really great. Second is responsibility. Of course, as designers, or I as a designer, I know that there's a very great responsibility, because I decide what kind of materials to be used and how they should work in different loops. And of course, it is about collaboration, because understanding the value chain and seeing how many different companies are involved means there are a lot of different stakeholders involved. So the product development process is never just about one or two persons. So it is about a whole bunch of different people and experts that are working on one solution or working on one challenge to find a solution. And of course, we need to share knowledge. And this is what we're doing at Circular Berlin. So we are a non-profit organization accelerating Berlin's transition towards a circular city, envisioning it as a resilient, citizen-oriented region. And we do have three major building blocks. So the first is knowledge building. We run knowledge building projects in Berlin to get more experience, but of course to earn data that we can then share with everyone. So everything we do is open source. It is about community building, showing or creating an ecosystem within Berlin and connecting different initiatives and stakeholders with each other. And the third thing, like I'm part of the education team, we enable students, professionals, interested people in the topic of circular economy, tell them how they can apply different approaches to different problems and what kind of strategies are there. Within these three building blocks, we have several different focus areas. So one very big one is the built environment and construction area. We have textiles and fashion, food and biomass, and electronics or circular electronics is under construction. But if you want to read more, just take a look at the website. So since 2019, We run knowledge building projects, like I told, to educate, of course, professionals and students. And till now, we're more than 90 members here based in Berlin. This is what I want to show you is our circular economy system in Berlin. So we've listed more than 220 initiatives. What you can see here started very, very small. So in the very beginning, there were just a few stakeholders of companies based in Berlin, which were within or working within the circular economy. So that is part of our job as well, to show different initiatives and to ensure connection. So here's some selected projects from recent projects. I can't talk too much about them because I was not part of the projects, but better take a look at the website. What I wanted to show you is a few weeks ago, we've launched a new website called Again Guide, which is very special because it's working in Berlin. So if you all want to buy new clothes, or you just want to get rid of your old clothes or find workshops, you can just take a look there, answer a few questions, and it will show you the relevant stakeholders right in your neighborhood. So this is, of course, a project to raise more awareness for circularity as well. So, and that's from my side. So thank you very much. Of course, we're an NGO. I would love to see some of your faces joining our community, so you can become a community member as an individual, or of course as a company, and get access to all the information and data and projects that we're working on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So 20 minutes ago, I was talking to Therese, and I said, like, if we have technical difficulties, I just come up with a story. Now we have technical difficulties. So the dear people in the live stream, they have seen the first slide, I think, for the whole presentation. So very sorry about that. We're just restarting everything again. Now that I'm running out of stories, or I kind of want to save them if I ever have kids and have to make them fall asleep fast, which I don't want you to do right now, we will do a Q&A at the end of all 3 talks. But if anybody has right now a question straight about the talk which is heard, feel free to shoot away. I think that's the best way to use this time. Yeah, so I see all hands up. Any questions? No questions. Well, I have a question. Do you take questions?
Of course.
So you showed that you have a really extensive knowledge, right, on also the research on the circular economy. And I wonder, when you read these papers and so on, has there ever been this one moment where you thought, like, why does not everybody know about this who's actively working on the circular economy in real life? So is there like one thing that you would wish people would actually read that paper, or yeah, the best thing?
So there's so many brilliant papers. So in terms of like a framework, it's always interesting to take a look at the Netherlands, because they are pushing circular economy very much. TU is also a great place if you are looking for more knowledge or want to take part in building programs. Yes, what is so if you would understand it on a very, or like the complex graphic with all the different arrows, so it is what we call, so for maybe not for circular economy starters, but the paper is called Circular Economy 3.0, how to get beyond the messy conceptualization of the different R frameworks, because there are a lot of different R's within the circular economy. And there are some tables which are showing on a very, very great way what does different approaches mean to different kind of people, for example, or stakeholders, so to consumers, to designers, to manufacturers. This is very interesting to understand. Of course, it is a little bit nerdy. I don't want you to read nerdy research papers.
So yeah, if the weather ever turns bad again, we've had sun for so long, you know where to find some additional reading. I'm very sorry you have to hold on to that question now, because we fixed it. Yeah, we have a special guest. She came all the way from Copenhagen on a long 8-hour bus ride, so you can tell us more about that after the show, maybe. But yeah, we're very happy to have Therese here from the Danish Design Council. So give it up.
Perfect.
And I think that's all you need.
Yes, I hope so. Okay, holding this mic is a bit new to me, but I'll do my best. So hello everyone, my name is Teresa, and I come from the Danish Design Center. I work as a junior design engineer, it's called. And I'm going to introduce you to the Danish Design Center and what we do, and I'm going to talk about our recently launched Circular Economy Toolkit. So we are a semi-public independent foundation that's based in Copenhagen, in this building, and it was the Danish Design Center was founded in 1978, and it was initially very based upon like Danish design and industrial design and these more classic design approaches. And then around 10 years ago, the strategy changed quite a lot, and now it's much more based upon like strategic design and how you can apply design in different contexts, so not only products but also in municipalities and societies and all these things. And the thing we do is like the core of everything we do is that we create innovation and sustainable growth by design. So I'm gonna quickly tell you about how we're organized. So we have the different environments, we call them, the social innovation, the digital transformation, and the green transition. And the way we organize is that we have these different environments, but they're also in the long run gonna cross. And we work in we're working in this mission-oriented manner. So it's like a new way of thinking where you can create different missions across different disciplines, where people are supposed to step into these greater missions to create a better society, basically. And right now we're working in missions, on missions in different fields. So within the social innovation, it's about thriving youth and how you can apply design and design thinking to create a better life for young people who tend to be more lonely. There's like more young people feeling lonely nowadays. So that's what this mission is about. Second mission is about emancipatory technologies, how you can design more ethical digital solutions. And finally, we have the green transition, which is about designing the irresistible circular society, which I'm mostly working on. So just to give you some concrete examples of like concrete projects we initiate. So within the social innovation, we have a project that ended in 2020, but it was called My Way Home, and it's about like how you can apply design and design thinking for young people who are put into care, basically. So how can you cooperate with the municipalities in Denmark to create a better transition for these young people? Just to give you an example of how design can be applied in a completely different way than, for example, product design or digitalization. Then in the digital transformation and also related to the emancipatory technology, we have the Digital Ethics Compass, which is also kind of a toolkit that was launched not that long ago. The official one is about how you can use this compass to work with more ethical design when you're designing digital solutions. And finally, an example of the green transition, a project called Green Circular Transition, which is a huge Danish project where they it's more than 200 SMEs that are going through like a business development course, aiming to develop a more circular business model, basically. And there are various like cases and different ways of doing this. So that was a bit about the Danish Design Center. I hope it makes sense. It's a funny size organization because we're not public, we're also not private, we're not a consultancy, but we're this organization that want to make a difference by design. So moving on to the Circular Economy Toolkit, Tobias gave a great introduction of like what circular economy is, and this is more about like it's our approach to develop some tools that are concrete and you can apply either if you're already working with circular economy or if you want to get started with circular economy. So why a toolkit for circular transition? We have applied design thinking in different contexts. And what we have seen is that design tools are really good at creating a common language, especially when it comes to circular economy, which is a very complex and difficult topic. So when you apply concrete design tools, you can, when people are gathered from different disciplines, they can create more like a common mindset, a common understanding, common language around this topic. They can also work in a cross-disciplinary manner, so like actually gathering these people from different disciplines and seeing them working together with something visual and concrete really help them in the different contexts where we have applied. Sorry. And last but not least, as I know most of you have like a design background, so you know that design tools are supposed to be, or they are often very visual, and this really helps to actually visualize the process. And we also have companies who put up their the tools in their company, and then people start to engage and give their inputs to the circular transition. So how does this toolkit work? We created these 8 tools in total, and they can work individually, and they can also work in this sequential manner we put up, or they can work in a more iterative manner. So if you want to go back and forth, you can also do that, of course. And it's based upon like a quite classic design approach. So you start converging and like looking at different like what are the you explore a lot and you see like what are the different obstacles and potentials and curiosities. Then you move on to becoming more concrete, and then you conceptualize, and then you look at it from a more systemic point of view, and then you conceptualize again, and then you finally are hopefully able to actually formulate this value proposition as like the value you want to deliver. So the way I'm presenting this toolkit is that I made up this fictitious case, just to demonstrate how the tools can be applied. And naturally, this is of course simplified, but it's still a way of showing how you could potentially apply these design tools in a company context. So imagine this company called Table and Chair. I was out of names when I made it up, but imagine this is quite classic, like Danish furniture company, quite small. They have a linear supply chain, and they really feel like the sustainability and circularity agenda breathing down their neck. So they want to get started on this circular journey, and where do they start? So the first tool is called Circular Strategies Wheel. It's actually quite related also to what Tobias presented. And it looks like this. So you can see that there's like it's a wheel that's presenting the different strategies that are related to a design's life cycle. So you start naturally in the design phase, where you have these different eco-design principles and design for circularity, and then you're working your way clockwise through the wheel. So you have the start of the life cycle, and then the other half of the circle is the product life, and finally you have the end of the life cycle. And you can see that these different strategies are kind of set up in a, you can definitely argue if you should swap some of them, but they are set up in a sequential manner for how you should prioritize when it comes to circular economy. So always starting with the design phase if you can, and then moving on to distribution, and then you have reuse, manufacturing, refurbishing, upcycling, and finally have the end of life, which is where we also demonstrate that recycling is actually one of the last opportunities for like things you want when it comes to circular economy. So the tool is set up like this. You can you're supposed to put like different post-its on the lines, and then there's a description for each strategy, so you can easier distinguish between these different strategies, because they can actually be quite hard to distinguish. And just to give you some examples, so we have this company again, and they said, okay, what can we do? Where can we start? And they mapped out the different potentials and curiosities and obstacles. And within the design phase, they thought, okay, maybe we can start designing for disassembly, these furniture. Maybe we can think about how we can do that in the design phase. They look at the distribution. So how can we maybe start circulating our packaging? Should we maybe focus on that to begin with? They also look at, could they maybe provide the user with a care guide, something like that, having more like an end user focus. And they also look at, could we repair, like give like a service that helps repairing and keeping maintenance related to the furniture. And then they are also quite intrigued about this idea of reselling their furniture. And finally, the pink post is like a bit worried about if they start choosing recycled materials, would it actually lose in quality? So that was just to give you an example of how you could apply this tool. So moving on to the second tool is How Might We? Probably many of you already know it, so I won't spend too much time on it, but it's just a way to say that you look at all of these different ideas, and you map out all of your thoughts related to this. And then you're supposed to choose one of these and say, okay, how might we actually choose one of these strategies and try to move on to work with this. So going from more like a challenge to actually like formulating a potential. And the difficult part of how might we is that you should definitely formulate something that's broad enough for many ideas to occur, but also something narrow enough so that specific ideas will actually occur. So in this case, we have how might we maintain interaction related to our furniture after sales with our customers so we can extend the lifetime of our products. So that's what they decided to move on with this resale strategy. So we move on to the third tool, which is Brainstorm Sudoku. And probably many of you also know brainstorm sessions and how you have many ways of doing this. But the way we encourage you to do this in this case is that we set up this Sudoku like with different matrices. So you put the how might we in the middle, and then you get different ideas related to this how might we, and then you put those out in the next matrix, and you start to generate ideas based on the other idea kind of. So it's a way to make a brainstorm more collaborative and also to spark a lot of ideas. So it's about the quantity here, not about like the quality. So also some of the companies we work with, they really found the value in like being able to just put all of your ideas out there and being inspired by others' ideas. And for this tool, we also make these inspirational cards, as we call them. So it's the ones you can see inside. There are many, so it's not that important, but this is the way to force people that are using this tool to think in new ways. So you tend to be a bit focused in something specific, and then it's just a way to open up your mind. And again, we just have an example. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but placing the how might we in the middle, and then you have different ideas, which are the pink post-its, and then they also use the inspirational cards around it. And then, for example, the resale strategy can be put in the other one, and they have different ideas, like should they cooperate with a second-hand market, or should they sell the furniture again to a specific institution and maybe a corporation, or what could they do in this case? So that's some of their ideas. So moving on to the fourth tool, we have a circular storyboard, as we called it. You probably all know a classic storyboard, so just this sequential way of putting up, or like visualizing an idea and start conceptualizing something you have in mind. And it's very similar. It's literally just a way to put it in a circle. And the reason why we do this is that it kind of forces you to think in a circular way, so to say. So often you would probably operate in maybe only the pre-phase, or maybe only the during phase, but it still forces you to say, okay, what is the whole story, and what is the whole life cycle of this resource that we are working with. And just to visualize this, I made this example again for this company, where they're still quite intrigued about this resale idea. So you can see in the pre-phase they have the sourcing of the material, the little tree, and then they show that the chair is being manufactured, and then it's being delivered to their store in Copenhagen. Someone comes and buys a chair, and then the user goes home, uses it for a while, and then at some point the user gets tired of this chair for some reason, could be many reasons, and then the user is actually able to send back this chair, disassemble it and send it back, and then the chair is being investigated, and then they get some kind of refund, and then it's being feed back into the loop of the company. So now you have many ideas, you have some kind of like a vague concept that you can present to someone, but what you really need is to look at it from a more systemic point of view. And that's what you do with this tool called ecosystem mapping. It's a classic tool, so it's a way of mapping out the different actors that you're working with in the business model. And it's the way it's organized is in this rainbow, as you can see, where it's like different layers of actors. So if you apply the example again, you can see that sorry, I was a bit fast, but they mapped out the different, like the current system, and then the ones where they're doubting a bit, like maybe these actors should maybe change the role, or have like, maybe we should break up with them or whatever. And then there's like a change potential, so maybe some could actually change their role or maybe have a completely new role in this ecosystem. And you can see here it's set up in these different categories, kind of. So you have the ecosystem initiators, the value collaborators, consumers, and external actors. And what is very valuable about this tool, in my opinion, is that you see that the dialogue around the tool is very crucial. So the companies get to talk about, okay, where should we actually place this actor? Is it a collaborator or is it a consumer? And how do we distinguish between these? And should they maybe change role if we change or if we incorporate a certain initiative? So it's always these dialogues that are important around the tools and not the actual tool. So related to this ecosystem map tool, we have the value creating system. So you have all of these actors, and then you say, okay, how can we make these actors into some actor clusters? And then the whole idea is that you don't place yourself in the middle and say, like, I'm the center of the ecosystem, but you try to look at it from a more holistic point of view and say, if we map out the different values between the different actor clusters, and we see, like, what value are we delivering to others and what are we receiving, how does the ecosystem look like? And this is also a very difficult task, actually. Also defining this value, how do you figure out what the value is? Maybe you don't even know, and then you can go out and figure out what value is actually being transactions between these different actor clusters. So the blue ones are the actor clusters, and they show like you're supposed to map out the motivations and the resources of these actor clusters. So of course this is very simplified. An ecosystem will be much more complex. It's just a way to get started of thinking in this like more holistic view and more systemic view of circular economy. Oh yeah, sorry, I zoomed in where you can see like some of the value transactions could, for example, be financial flows, information, knowledge, resources, and so on. Then we have tool number 7, which is the expanded circular storyboard. So it's very much related to the previous storyboard, but it kind of forces you to make another iteration of this. So now you have the more systemic point of view, and you're hopefully able to refine this concept a bit more at this stage. So it looks like the previous one. We just made some more sequences or like scenes it's called, sorry, in each phase, the pre, during, and post. And we also, in the circumference of the circle, you have the different actors involved, and then you have the material flow. So you're kind of forced to think what materials are linked to this specific scene. And again, we have the same concept, but now the company chose to refine it a bit more. So you still have the manufacturing of the chairs, and then the chairs, or like the sourcing, sorry, then the manufacturing, then some quality checking, which they always do. And then some user comes to their store and they buy a chair and use it for a while. They return it, but now the difference is that when it's more like a local project, so they kind of acknowledge that, okay, let's just try to only do it in Copenhagen, let's do it locally. So it's actually able to test out and make like a prototype of it. Would people actually be willing to hand back or give back their furniture at some point? So the chair comes back, and then the new thing is that the company gives you this re-chair report. So like you're kind of, as a user, you're forced to fill out this report saying, okay, where was this chair used? What did it mean to me? So you add some storytelling to this chair. It's just an idea they had. Could be fun. And then the communication department in the company can actually they can add the story to the chair, and then you can feed back to the system again. So the second time the chair goes into the market, you can read about, oh, this person had the chair and he was this person or whatever. And it kind of should add some value to the chair at least. So we have the final tool, which is circular value proposition. You probably all know value propositions. They're quite important very important to like communicate the value you promise to deliver in like related to a certain business. And the way we made this tool is it's heavily inspired by another toolkit that are working in a quite systemic way. And you work in these different, like the triple bottom line, so you have the economic, the environmental, and the social dimension in the purple one. And then you're also working on different levels. So you have like the individual level, and then we have the ecosystemic level, and then we have the societal level. It's actually a really difficult exercise. See, I didn't fill out many post-its here. But thinking in these different levels and dimensions at the same time is a good exercise to think about how you can deliver this value all the way around, and not just think in the environmental aspect, but also think about social and economic aspects. And then there's this, you see the pink value proposition. So this is where you're actually able to formulate one or more value propositions that you can go and communicate to your team or your CEO or your external collaborators or whatever makes sense. And in this case, the value proposition is that we want to resell our furniture on our website and our shop in Copenhagen. This makes us able to contribute to the circulation of products and incorporate storytelling in our furniture, and thereby we can extend the lifetime of materials and create increased emotional attachment to our products. So that's what they want to communicate, and that's what they want to test out. And that was actually kind of it for me. So I hope this gave like an introduction to, of course, this is, like I said, it's a simplified way of showing it, but it's still a way to get started. And also just a bonus info that is that we've set it up in Miro also, so you're able to work in a digital template on Miro and actually try to apply these tools. So there's the canvas, as you can see, post-its are set up, a description and step-by-step guide, as well as a little video about like the overall purpose of this specific tool. So yeah, I think that was it for me.
Thank you very much.
What?
Yeah, no questions this time because it seems to be working. So hold on to your questions. The Q&A is starting very soon. But before we get to the Q&A, I have one more exciting talk. And yeah, this evening I realized it's quite amazing that we started at the almost the holistic level. What is the circular economy? What are the concepts? And we're continuously zooming in. Now we learned 8 really cool tools, how to really use them. And I think our third speaker, Leah, is telling us about how it's really done then in the workplace. So yeah, a little applause for Leah.
Thank you. Hello everybody, I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Leah Suirmont. I'm working for Tonitrus as key account manager for the French market. So perfect. So this is the company. So just before to begin, I will just present my company. Tonitrus is a German company that's been created in 2009. We are specialized into IT equipment like computer, server, data storage, etc. Our consumer are B2B and public actors. So everybody here, I guess, is using this IT equipment for personal life, but as well for business. And in the context of sustainable development of circular economy, it's an interesting topic. So that's why we're going to see like how those Tonitrus business model meets the challenges of the circular economy as a concrete example. So just a remember about some numbers. Here we have 8.6%. So what does it mean, 8.6%? So when you have around like 100 billion tons per year of material entering in the economy, there is only 8.6% from renewable material. All the rest are coming from extraction and are virgin material. So I was thinking that it would be interesting to have a view of the linear structure of the economy to really understand why we are doing what we do in Tonitrus. So it's a simple recap of what a linear economy is creating as problematic. So especially for IT material, what do we need? We need mineral and metallic component. Where do we find them? We extract them. So this provoke a lot of problems from like environmental till social problems, and we have as well the problem of the quantity of the resources. Some reserve of these metals are almost empty. We have around like 40 years, so it's really short. And the second point, of course, it's about the production and distribution, which is provoking a lot of pollution for the, of course, greenhouse gas, but as well on the earth, on the air, and the water. But what is really like is interesting us, it's about the electronic waste. So when I speak about electronic waste, I'm not speaking only about the computer or like server. I'm speaking as well about fridge, whatever, like washing machine, everything with electronic. Here, 2019, we are 53 million metric tons, and we think that in 2030 it will be 74 million metric tons, which is enormous, which is a big problem, because when we are like not burning them, putting in the earth, they are just staying out, and especially in the like poor country, it's problematic. It's poisoning. It's creating as well like some mafia system, which are like financing wars. So that's something we need to think about how to change. And I was presenting you some numbers here. So this is always about the electronic waste. 17% are collected and put into the system of recycling industry. And in Europe, we are going good step by step, but for example, in Africa, the system is not at all established. So what does it mean? It means that the states are not developing structure to take care of this waste. They don't have the money, they don't have the willing, there is a ton of reason, geopolitics, instability, whatever. So that's a problem, because then we are losing a lot of component that we could reuse for refurbished material, IT or other things. So we have this context, but as Tonetrus, what is supporting our action? How can we have action? So here, first, you all heard about the thinking green. Thinking green is simply like how people are now caring more and more about the environment. Like you can see maybe with your children, more and more children are taking care, are aware about the environment. I will speak a bit about France, because I'm French and I'm taking care of the French market. Now we can see that more and more persons are interested about having, for example, a refurbished smartphone. They're really happy. Like, why to buy a new one when you can have a cheaper one, when you can have one with a warranty, and when it's good for the environment. So people are really happy to do that. So that's a good point, because mentalities are the most difficult to change. The second point is like when public actors are taking a step into the game. And then we have like two laws. I selected these two because we have a ton as Germany and Netherlands, but let's begin. So the first one is the Energy Transition Law from October 2014. What is interesting about this one is the first time that in France we talk about circular economy into legal text. So that's the first step. And in this text as well, we are talking about how to manage the waste, the consumption, etc. The second one, which is really important and as well for my work, is the AGEC law from 2020, which is going to be was implemented in 2021. So it's around 5 axes. Most important is about focusing on the reuse of product. And what they say in this law is that public actors have to use their budget into goods from the circular economy. So what does it mean? It means like reuse, refurbished, renew. And this product have to contain at least 20% of recycled material. 20% to 100% according to the goods. So that's good because it means that mentalities as well changing at this level. And in my work, so we are of course working with B2B consumer, but we're working with the public. And most of them, they don't have an idea, they are not aware of the potential of their IT. Often they have material, but they don't know what to do with that. So, for example, they have computers, oh, the computer is too old, what do? Oh, we don't know, we don't have the process, we don't have the ID. We're not in contact with the good companies. So, us at Tonetrus, we contact them, we tell them, hello, so we are Tonetrus and we can take care of your old material. And that's interesting because then we are rebuying their goods and we are providing them new, and the new are often refurbished. 80% of the material that we sell are refurbished goods. So that's a victory, because we see how, you saw with me how much waste there is from this material. So all this laws, mentality awareness are based on the concept of course, sustainable development, but circular economy. And that's our planetary circular economy cycle. So what do we do? We are collecting goods of B2B public actors. We are checking them, checking if they are functioning. Most important is like we are just buying functioning material. We are raising the data, and once is like all is verified, we are giving the money to the customer, and we are putting a warranty on our product. Super important is like compared to our competitors, we have the 3 years warranty on our refurbished material. And that's a really big argument when we are talking with the customer. Because in our mind, even for personally me, when you talk to me about refurbished, okay, I'm not sure about the quality, I don't know if it's gonna work, it's still some money that we invest in. But when you are talking about the warranty, then there is trust. And when there is trust, there is like, we can talk and we can develop the commercial relation. So once we reduce the value, we change if, for example, there is USB port is not working, we do it like new, then we can sell it on our website. And then it finds a new customer, and here's the cycle. So I just wanted to take a simple example of product, since we are in front of the designer product assembly. And this is the Esprimo E9900 by Fujitsu. So why this product? It's because Fujitsu made a study about the impact of this computer from the A to Z. So from the creation to like distribution, and his weight for CO2, the pollution, etc. And for example, you have this GED footprint. For him, it's like 339 kilograms. And this is just for the tower of this desktop computer. So you don't add the screen, we don't count the use of the computer. So it's already enormous. To compensate it, you need like around 47 years of using. It's like crazy. Yeah, insane. So if you want to read more, you can check on online. You have also detail, and it's a really interesting report. So of course, when we talk about the product, we need to know what there is in the product, right? So here it's what contains the PC and the percentage in total weight of the computer. So mainly, what do we see? We see here iron, silica, and the other big one is like plastic. So for the moment, like we are not able to replace all this metallic and minerals. It's like we don't know how to do it. But we can just select maybe more interesting plastic, recycled plastic. So some companies did it. Often it's about greenwashing, so I will not talk about this more intensely. But there is definitely something to do about where you find the product, like which filial you are like taking the product, which product you choose, like if they are recycled, if they don't have too much impact on the environment. And yeah. So once you have your product, for example, you buy from my website, super, you have your product. What I provide you is, as I said, 3 years warranty. Because why are we talking about that? It's not about promotion, it's about our goal at Tennis is like to make you keep your product as long as possible. Because we saw it, when you keep it longer, then you don't rebuy, you don't recreate waste. So we want you to keep your product as long as possible. We have 2 propositions for you. We have the 3-year standard warranty, which is like a replacement, whatever is refurbished on you, and we are just replacing the things. Good. And then, for example, if you're a company like who has whatever server, you have a data center with really old servers. Often, manufacturer like Dell, like HP, they're gonna tell you, oh, we don't want anymore to take care of your material. We don't want to put a warranty on it. It's too old. So as a company, you're gonna think, okay, maybe it's time to rebuy new material. in case something happened and then I don't have any warranty, I don't have nobody to take care of it. As we come here to propose you this maintenance, third-party maintenance, so you can just have an insurance and warranty from us at different levels. So it can be just a replacement of a part, spare part, to a full contract with intervention on Saturday, whatever, like emergency things. So then you can keep your material longer, you are economizing money, and you are like reducing your impact, the waste. That's a good point. Moreover, is like it's like our engagement is not about only our business model. It's not about just like providing refurbished goods. It's as well we are taking care of our impact globally as a company. So it's of course about our energetic cost, and that's why we implement on our warehouse rooftop a solar plant, so of 2,000 square meter, and which is providing us like each year 185 million watts per hour. So what does it mean? Like concretely is like at our company 70% of the energy is from like this part, and the 30% left is coming from renewable energy. So we are trying our best to reduce our impact. And the second point, so thanks to that, we have an AA rating for the energy, so that's pretty nice for us. And we want, of course, to help to change the mentalities, and to help to change the mentalities, you need to think as well about your own employees. So that's why we created on our parking e-charging station. So whatever you want to invest, for example, in electric cars, then you can come to the work, easy peasy. You have your station to charge your car, and that's avoid to have this consuming cars. And of course, because we are providing goods, we have packets to put the goods in. And a big waste was about the boxes, even it was like recycled. So we really try to do eco-friendly packaging. We try to reuse as well already the boxes that we have to limit as much as we can our impact. So I will finish about our principle. We reduce the waste by reusing and by recycling. And we believe like into the sustainable development. We believe that thanks to our company, we can just do this transition to this circular system. But we are really conscious as well that it's like circular economy is not enough. It's a part of the solution, but it's not enough. If we don't reduce our consumption, that will not work. And that's why it's really important to rethink about our way of consuming, but as well our place as a human being in this world. So thank you for everything, for your intention, and don't hesitate if you have a question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can stay here with me right away.
Okay, cool.
And please, Tobias and Therese, you can also come up here, because we get to the final part, and my favorite part, actually, the Q&A. I know we have at least one question in the audience. We have one issue, however, we don't have an audience mic. That one got lost during the pandemic somewhere. We'll get it back. So please just say like this, we'll try to repeat it.
Sure.
Yeah?
So I want to talk about one thing. Last year, I guess I went to a design week in Netherlands, and there was this line of products which they were claiming to be part of circular design, and the materials that they build were part of circular economy and circular design. But when we investigated and talked more about what materials are they using, we figured out we did some fact checking on that as well. Figured out some of the plastic that they will be using with, and they were mixing it with a certain material. It was not possible to recycle it after that, but they were still claiming it to be circular design. So I want to know if there is any thing that you're working to make it more transparent, this process of circular economy and anything like that to the people.
Do you want to ask anyone particular?
Anyone can answer.
I'll try to summarize your question.
Yeah.
So your question was if there are any ideas in place to make it more transparent, what is needed, what are the different elements. I'll give it to you.
So you mean the use of recycled plastic? How to make better choice or have more information on the use of?
Trigger the process, like if a company is anything is claiming it to be circular, like how are they being transparent about their processes?
So by circular plastics, you mean just recycled plastics, right?
Anything, like not just plastics or anything, like if they're like part of circular economy.
Of course, there are different services like Concula. It's a Berlin-based company which is focusing on construction, and they kind of rebuild they how to say so they catalog they take all the components of a building to a catalog, and then they have a service which online you can take a look at all the different components the building is existing from, and then in Coburg in Germany is called selektiver Rückbau before the building is gets broken down. And there you have the possibility to see if you want to use or reuse different components for your new building, for example. So there, and of course, there is kind of recycling börse. So there are ways to buy recycled materials for manufacturers. Something which
Yeah. So just about IT equipment. Now in France, since the Loi AGEC that I was talking about from 2021, we have what we call an indice of reparability. So it's meant that on the website of a shop where you could buy like a computer, where you could buy a smartphone, you're gonna have a number according to how we can like recycle this product. So it's really interesting, and in 2024 it will change to durability index. So it's going to be even more complete. So that's what I can say for
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just hosting here, but there's two more also, like the circularity ID for clothing that says like what's inside of a shirt when you recycle it, and Madaster, you probably know it. It's kind of this. Maybe you don't, but it's for buildings when they're built, what kind of pipes are used and so on. So, yeah. All right. I saw a question over there. Somebody was raising their hand. Yeah.
Okay, I tried to shout. So I want to engage actually, maybe even all the speakers, but first of all, I like that we have an example of Leah, that is the actual company that's already doing circular initiatives, and your business model is based on that. But I wonder, like, since we heard from Teresa, really nice tools, I wonder, like, what kind of tools would Teresa recommend Leah's company to use to take their circular initiative forward?
That's a good question.
All right, I'll just repeat it. What kind of tools would Teresa recommend to Leah's company for the initiatives? I think the question is for you.
Well,
Nice to meet you.
well, it's a good question. I mean, even though you're like born circular, I guess there's always something you can do
To improve.
to improve. And I think that's also related to like design thinking in general, that nothing is ever done and things can always be improved upon. So I guess like what tools you could apply is that you can look at these different strategies and see if there's even more you can do.
Yeah.
In different ways. I guess that probably is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There's always a way.
There's always a way.
Do you want to say anything to it?
Get started, okay?
No problem. Thank you for that. I will have a look on your PowerPoint then. That's it in 80. One other question.
We'll see you on the mirror board. Yeah, maybe you're in the middle.
Yeah, I have a
a question that actually relates to that. So especially Leah's example, I think it's going to be a really hard transition also inside a company because if you already are approving in your mind of circular economy and the way that certain things work, the difficulty, I guess, is when you want to start initiatives inside a company, how would you, from your experience or from the tools or whatever, what are good approaches to do that? If you, from the inside, you want to bring that to the team, either from a management perspective, going top down, or from an employee perspective, like bottom up initiating. So just from your experience, what works?
How to get it started when you're inside a company? How can you get the spark going for circular economy? Anyone you had in mind?
Yep.
Yeah, I can start. Yes. It's a really good question. I think it really depends on like what kind of company you're in. So is it someone who's super motivated and what everyone is on board and wants to get started? Then I guess everyone can be involved. But I have like a personal example from what I've been like some of the workshops I've been facilitating is that was a company relatively small also where there was one circularity pioneer kind of who really wanted to get started, but the rest were like, why should we do this? And it's so inconvenient and can't be asked kind of. But they also joined these workshops and then they started to say, oh, but we could actually do this and we could do this and we could do this. And then suddenly the snowball effect really hit this company. And of course, it's not a guarantee that it's going to happen all companies. It was quite interesting to follow this process of like getting people, like the visualization and the fact that everyone can contribute with their ideas, regardless of their background, can really engage people in this transition, which I find super interesting.
So the tool would be a workshop using some of these methodologies.
Definitely, and also like plotting the things or like printing them and putting them up on the wall and actually doing it physically can also help with that. So now I have the Miro board also, but we've seen examples of like also another company made this war room they call it sustainability war room, and then they put up all of the tools, and then they start engaging even the people on like who are doing the packaging, working in the storage. Okay, they could also contribute because they have a lot of knowledge, which is very like downstream compared to maybe the CEO or the manager kind of. So I hope this answers your question. Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
So for my experience in this company, what I would say is like we are not too big, let's say, and everyone in this company that I can know is engaged, is believing about like circular economy, about sustainability. So of course we are not like professional. We don't have your technicity about how to implement, but I think what is important is like how people want to change the things. Because if there is no willing, you can do a ton of reports, it will not happen. So what is really nice, and that's why as well I came to this company, because I really feel that we are all sharing this passion for sustainability and we want to improve economy. We're a company, of course, we are making money, but at least we want to improve the things. And the CEO of the companies, they are like really working on it. They are trying their best. So you see for the product of the model, but you saw as well for all the energy part, how we are like providing the electricity to our company. So yeah, I'm really like kind of positive about the future for this company, about implementation of new strategy for sustainable economy, but as well for all CSR6, which is which is CSR, like taking part of, yeah, whatever. Yeah. So you understand me. Like, yeah, it's a really good company to get aware of all this problematic. Thank you.
Passion and make it tangible. Yes. So we have one question over there, one myself here, one here. I'm going to start with you, and then we just work our way forward.
Okay, so I basically come from a startup that revolves around the concept of circular economy. What we basically are doing we are like allowing organizations to get mobile devices and other IT equipment. And what we do is from procurement to refurbishing, we handle the whole device management cycle. Like as a product manager, like I've been talking to some customers, and one of the basic problems I realized that was revolving around it was that there is customer convenience and they're not ready to accept change. Like for example, we want to enforce, like you talked about rentals, like we need to make sure that we rent equipment. So what we're doing is we're basically providing rentals, but their spending habits, that's a very big, hurdle or obstacle, because not everybody is willing to, move to the rental method. So in this way, I realized that, the business model altogether, the scalability and all that gets a bit hindered. So how would you suggest should be the way forward? How do we convince more people to, be on board with us, and, how should there be, some mutual, agreement, so we can, altogether practice the model?
So for the online audience, how can we convince people of, especially customers, of adapting a more sustainable products and services, or also how to just make them stop being lazy? Do you have an answer? I can see it.
So I think what is important to understand that you always need to have a kind of status quo that you're talking about. About every sustainable achievement, you always something is more efficient. Efficient to what? So I think it is pretty important to show kind of a convenient solution that still exists and show the benefits on every level, not just on an economic, but on a social level as well. And I think in this way you can create arguments that work for the customer. Something.
Yeah, I can add something. I'm personally really interested in this topic because it's about behavioral design, right? How can you apply behavioral economics principles in a circular economy context? And I think it's still, as far as I know, a bit undiscovered areas. How do you concretely do this? I think it's about like figuring out how do micro actions lead to users actually doing what you want them to do. What makes them sort the waste? What makes them hand back their electronics equipment, all these things. And I guess it's a matter of like applying design and like making prototypes and see what micro actions could lead to these changes, if that makes sense. But I think it's a whole like area on its own. It's super interesting because consumers and users are a huge part of this transition. So it's like it's both the user and also the industry that must change, of course.
So for my experience, as I was saying, is like, of course, what we have B2B customer, and especially for the B2B customer, what is important is the cost. They're companies. They don't want to be like, most important is like how many they spend, how much they spend. So that's a good, for us, a good reason to provide refurbished, because it's of course less expensive than new material, and as well as a proof of trust for the product, we have the system of warranty. And so it's like, for the B2B, it's convincing pretty well the people. For the public organization, it's not so much about the money. You can play more with the laws system and the labels and everything. So different is depending of which person you have in front of you.
I love the range of answers you have, from cost to micro actions. It's amazing. Yeah, over there. No, someone raised their hand before. I'm very sorry. Well, good for you.
I have a question to Matthias. So you referred to your education as a product designer, and that 80% of the impact can be made during the design phase. And you mentioned that during your course and studies, you were actually not exposed to the topic. What would you recommend to students who would be interested in both doing product design and then transition over to systemic design? Where should they orient themselves? Which are good education programs?
Thank you for the question. So I have the privilege to work at university, and part of my job besides our research is to giving lectures. And this is what we're really working on. So to get a better understanding. So in our research project, we're working on a project called Warm Planet Design. So how to design within planetary boundaries, especially taking, for example, CO2 into account, and it is very difficult. So we're in the very beginning, but we realized that especially the young students coming to our university, in this case, very much aware of all the global challenges. So they're very connected to, for example, Fridays for Future. So it's a much younger generations, and they interact, or they ask different questions than, or different question than older students. What I think is that all universities that are handling with industrial product or industrial design, they more become aware of the topic, because it is very essential. Otherwise, we create, or we're a system creating designers that are not needed anymore. And I think this is important to understand. So of course, I'm working at University of Applied Sciences Potsdam, a great place to study. But of course, there are lots of different other universities. But it always depends on, so is it about, so some universities are more focusing on specific topics, if it's mobility or is it furniture, whatever. And I would suggest doing the thing that you like the most, because if one thing is creating impact, but the other thing is making something enjoyable. I hope that answers your question.
All right, I would suggest you take one more question. You're going to stay a bit after, right?
Yeah.
So feel free to ask them.
Maybe we have an online question.
Oh yeah, we have online questions, maybe. Maybe we do.
Well,
Do we?
We can take 1 minute. What kind of metrics can be used to measure circularity?
That's the question where everyone's like, oh.
I think a lot of different tools exist, and I know there's something called Material Circularity Indicator developed by the MacArthur Foundation, which is quite, as far as I know, they're quite product based. There's also environmental performance indicators, which is more eco-design based. So that's also, if you have a product, you can look at different environmental performance indicators and see how you can quantify different aspects related to a product, which for example could be how long does it take to disassemble something, how long, or like, disassemble, reassemble, how can you make it more compact and lighter weight, maybe that's also a trade-off, you should do that, right? But do you know any tools for passing it on?
So of course, on a technical product design level, of course, life cycle assessment is very important. So like I mentioned before, like having a status quo that you're talking about, but what is very essential is like thinking about the eco-performance. So this is very hard to do, because how you compare, for example, the most sustainable chair you can imagine that is not being used frequently with a not so sustainable chair made from, for example, from non-recyclable materials that has been used every single day for decades and decades. And this is very hard to measure, of course. But there are other ways, for example, from the Wuppertal Institute, there are different kind of MIPS, the kind of working with the intent, or taking the eco-performance more into account, but it's very hard to get data from this. So once the product is sold and you're not in charge anymore, it's hard to get data. So in this context, for example, IoT or sensors are very, very important. So one way of doing.
I take this, sorry, but how many more online questions are there? I feel really bad ignoring them. Yeah, it's okay, because we can do one more, and then maybe your question as well, and then we call it. Yeah, first has to dive into the comment section.
So let's do one more.
All right.
Sorry.
No. You can do it. Go ahead. Yeah.
How the manufacturing of digital products also play a role in circular economy. So I think how can we work with digital products and how to look at circular economy for digital products.
How do digital products matter in the circular economy? We have IT products here. We have, maybe.
So it's like,
I didn't get so well the
So
question.
it's not about the product, but digital products, so people only having a platform or having a digital solution.
More software.
I can start when possible.
Yeah.
Of course, through sharing platforms, for example, eBay is a very good example. Yeah, so there are a lot of ways. Or when it comes to earning data, sensors or essential IoT is a very big thing because you can get proper data from this that you can analyze as a company.
Yeah, I think like if you're a digital platform, for example, you will inevitably be a part of some value chain, and like looking at this from a holistic point of view, so you will have, maybe you don't have the biggest footprint, but you're influencing others who might have a footprint. So looking at it from a life cycle point of view, I think it's very important. And also like if you, for example, if you have a lot of sensors, like where's your data stored and where do the sensors come from and how are the working conditions where they come from, all these things. So again, like the holistic view, product life cycle view of everything you touch upon.
So we get to the final question.
Possibility. Just actually a follow-up to some of the previous questions. And we talked about how, or you talked about how to create momentum in a company to move towards circularity. And the question is, if you take a company as a very linear business model, right, and they're really looking at their bottom line and their financials. So what argument would you use to say, hey, this is really something you should move towards and look into, and what the impact on the business potential?
It's a follow-up question to how to get a company engaged in circular economy, and you're specifically asking what is the killer argument to get everybody as passionate as at your workplace?
Arguments.
Yeah. How did it start at your company?
So for my company, it's two brothers who create this company, and they were so passionate about IT equipment and as well aware of the sustainable, of the environmental problem. That's why I begin by the why, because this is really the base of our company. We are really passionate about that. And of course, now what is important, what is interesting is like you have more and more law who are driving the companies to this sustainable system, but still there's a lot of things to do, and sometimes, in my opinion, the state is not enough powerful to incite the private sector to move to the circular economy. And as well, sometimes it's like if it's not enough about money, then they will not move. It's always about money, unfortunately. So.
Can I ask something? The first thing that comes to mind when I ask that question is risk in general. So like we know that material scarcity is a thing. We're getting fewer. It's harder and harder. It gets more and more expensive to source materials, and you don't want a risky business, right? So it is, maybe it's more on the horizon, it's a longer run, but it is a huge risk to keep business as usual. And we know that resources are limited. So like we really have to start circulating. I think that's one of a huge argument that is
Yeah, like I know from plastic manufacturing companies. So the ones that are not so much into sustainability is always, of course, it's always about economics. So oil prices are high. There is a need to buy recycled plastics. As oil prices are low, virgin plastics is used. But I think to your question, it's always connected to not just, I would call it a circular vision, but it is always connected to like the overall company vision. So it is about sustainability and make something more efficient on the one side. So it's not just about the product, it's about the people, the environment in the company. So making the most sustainable products, but treating your employees very bad is not very sustainable. So it is an overall question on all levels of company, I would suggest.
Just to add, so then it's like reaching CSR dimension. It's like you take care of your environment, you take care of your people, and you take care of the society. It's a whole thing, and that's why it's interesting that now more and more government are creating CSR labels for company. So one which is really known as a B Corp. So it's not exactly focusing on CSR, but it's establishing a really a nice environment for social reform and yeah.
Has your question been answered? Yeah. That's it, I think, for today's Product Crunch. Thanks so much for your questions. We also have some speaker gifts. So please, one more round of applause to What is it? I have never. The surprise in the brand bag. Oh, nice. Also, thanks. A durable pen. Yeah, thanks so much to you, but also thank you so much to, there's a team behind Product Crunch that organizes it over and over again. So thanks so much to Alex, to Morgan, and also to Lea. And of course, also there's many other good touch people helping out at the bar, at the entrance. Yeah, we tried to turn this into a circular thing as well, so we hope all of you come again next year. We'll keep you posted once we know the new topic. If you have a great idea of a topic or a friend of a friend that really needs to be on the stage, feel free to talk to Lea, Alex, or Morgan, or also me. Yeah, thanks so much. It was a blast, and yeah, now enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Earlier we put a playlist with edited live streaming.
No, I stopped the live stream. Or it should have been stopped.
You want to stop the live stream first?
I just ended the live stream. Should we?
We können den Livestream ausschalten.
Achso.
Irgendwo vorher kommt noch Sound.